She was left at the altar, heart shattered and humiliated in front of hundreds. But just when everything seemed lost, a mysterious stranger stepped forward with a shocking offer. "I'll marry her." What followed was a journey of trust, secrets, and a love story no one saw coming. Alina Monroe thought her life was ruined, but fate had other plans, and a man named Damian Cole who would change everything. Who is this man, and why did he choose her? You won't believe how this story unfolds. Tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable stories. Alina Monroe's fingers trembled as she clutched the folds of her ivory gown, the satin slipping through her grip like water. The bridal suite buzzed with muffled tension, her friends whispering nervously in corners, the makeup artist frozen mid-stroke, mascara wand hovering just above Alina's lashes. Outside, wedding music floated up from the church garden like a cruel joke. "Mama, where is he?" Alina whispered, voice cracking as she turned to her mother, Vivian Monroe, who stood by the window with her phone pressed to her ear, her brow furrowed in a frown that deepened by the second. "Jordan isn't answering," Vivian said quietly, her voice tight. "His best man says he left the hotel this morning. No one knows where he went." Alina felt her knees wobble, the veil slipping slightly off her perfectly pinned hair. "He left? You mean he's not coming? On our wedding day?" Her voice rose with disbelief, and silence overtook the room like a cold gust of wind. The bridesmaids exchanged panicked looks. Someone gasped. From the open window, she could hear the murmurs already starting outside. Guests were beginning to realize something was wrong. Downstairs, seated in the last pew near the back, Damian Cole sat quietly. Dressed simply in a gray linen shirt and navy trousers. He looked like any regular guest, not someone who belonged at a wedding so lavish. He was a last-minute invite, brought by the event decorator Cheek, who owed him a favor. Damian had no real connection to the bride or the groom, but he'd come, out of politeness. "Did you hear?" Cheek whispered, leaning toward him, panic lacing his voice. "The groom disappeared, right before the ceremony." Damian looked up slowly, brows furrowing. "Disappeared?" "Jordan's gone. The bride's upstairs losing it. Her whole family's a mess." Damian stood without a word. "Where are you going?" Cheek hissed, grabbing his arm. "Upstairs," Damian replied. "Maybe I can help." In the bridal suite, chaos was a living, breathing thing. Alina sat motionless on the edge of the bed, veil now fully down over her face, her mother pacing and yelling into the phone, trying to reach an elder to decide whether to cancel the ceremony. Then came a soft knock. "Excuse me," a man's voice said. All heads turned. Damian stepped inside the room. For a moment, silence. Alina looked up, stunned. "Who are you?" Vivian snapped. "My name is Damian Cole," he said calmly. "I know this sounds insane, but I saw what's happening. And if the groom isn't coming, I'll marry her." A collective gasp erupted. "Are you mad?" one of Alina's cousins shouted. "You don't even know her." Damian didn't flinch. "I know this is crazy, but I also know she doesn't deserve to be humiliated. If she agrees, I'll marry her, right here, right now." Alina stared at him. His eyes were steady, kind. He didn't look like a man trying to pull a stunt. He looked sincere. Vivian folded her arms. "What's in it for you?" "Nothing," Damian said simply. "Just helping a woman in pain." The room held its breath. Alina stood slowly. Her heart was in shambles. Her future had just collapsed. But this stranger, he stood before her like a wall, solid and unmoving. "All right," she said softly, "I'll marry him." The room exploded in confusion, but she didn't waver. 15 minutes later, Alina walked down the aisle, her hand looped through Damian's. The air had changed. Whispers rippled through the pews like wind through dry grass. The priest blinked in confusion, scanning the program. "Who is that?" someone hissed. "That's not Jordan. What's going on?" Damian leaned in and whispered to Alina, "We can stop this if it's too much." Alina kept her eyes forward. "I don't know what I'm doing," she whispered back. "But I won't be humiliated, not today." "Then lean on me," Damian said. "Just for today." The ceremony began, and against all odds 2 strangers said vows neither of them had rehearsed, yet somehow meant every word. 3 days had passed since Alina Monroe said "I do" to a man she had met less than an hour before the ceremony. The once buzzing Monroe household was now a nest of murmurs, suspicion, and stares that lingered too long. Every time Alina walked through the hallway, she felt eyes on her, watching, judging, questioning. Her mother, Vivian, had barely spoken since the wedding, only breaking the silence to scold the neighbors for gossiping. But Alina knew the tension was thick enough to slice. That morning, Damien approached her in the backyard, where she sat on the porch steps sipping lukewarm tea. He stood with his hands in his pockets, gaze fixed on the horizon. "I think it's time," he said softly. Alina looked up at him, brows furrowed. "Time for what?" "For us to leave, to go to my home." His voice was calm, like always, but there was a flicker of unease behind his eyes. "We can't keep playing newlyweds under your mother's roof. We need space, a fresh start." Alina blinked. "To your house?" she asked, as if the concept itself were foreign. "Yes," Damien said, stepping down a stair to meet her eye level. "We've stayed long enough, and let's be honest, they're watching me like I'm about to sell the family cow for magic beans." Alina couldn't help the smile that tugged at her lips. "You think?" Damien chuckled. "I know." There was something about his quiet confidence that made her shoulders ease, if only slightly. But when they approached Vivian inside the kitchen, she didn't make it easy. "You're leaving?" she asked flatly, turning from the sink where she was peeling yam. Two of Alina's aunties sat nearby, thus shelling groundnuts with hawk-like attention. "It's been 3 days," Alina said gently. "We need to start our life together. Damien has work in Atlanta." Vivian snorted. "What do we even know about Atlanta? Or him? What if he lives in a single-room apartment next to a train yard?" "I understand your concern, Ma," Damien replied politely. "That's why I'm not opposed to you knowing where your daughter is going." Vivian narrowed her eyes. "You don't mind taking someone with you?" Damien nodded. "Not at all." "Good," she said. "Naomi will go." Alina blinked. "Naomi?" Her younger sister stood frozen in the doorway, clutching a spoon mid-stir. "Me?" she asked, pointing at herself. "Yes," Vivian said with finality. "You'll pack your things and go with them. Report back." As Alina packed her overnight bag upstairs, Naomi followed her in, arms crossed. "You married a complete stranger, and now we're traveling to his mystery mansion? Are you sure you're not cursed?" Alina chuckled, tossing a shawl into her bag. "Naomi, not today." The journey to Atlanta was long, with patches of silence broken only by the soft jazz that hummed through the car's speakers. Damien had hired a black SUV with leather seats and tinted windows. Naomi sat in the back, arms folded, shooting side glances at Damien as if waiting for him to sprout horns. "You always this quiet?" Naomi asked after a while. "Only when I'm driving with 2 sisters who might tie me up and toss me in a ditch," Damien replied without missing a beat. Naomi raised an eyebrow. "Well, now you sound suspicious." Alina sighed. "Naomi, behave." But Naomi wasn't entirely wrong. The ride got stranger the farther they drove. They didn't head toward the familiar neighborhoods. No downtown streets, no cheap motels, not even suburbia. Instead, the SUV turned onto a private road lined with towering palms and elegant lampposts. At the end stood an ornate wrought iron gate. "Where exactly are we?" Naomi asked, her voice tight. "You'll see," Damien replied. The gate creaked open automatically. Behind it stood a mansion, not a house. A literal mansion. White walls, wide terraces, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a fountain shaped like a lion spouting water. Alina's jaw dropped. "This is your house?" Damien stepped out, his face calm as ever. "Welcome home," he said. Naomi's mouth fell open. "You live here? Are you a secret senator or what?" "I told you I run logistics," Damien said, helping Alina out of the car. "I just didn't mention how big." That night, Alina stood in the guest bedroom, staring out the window at the moonlit garden. Her heart pounded. This wasn't just a stranger anymore. This was a man with secrets, and somehow she was part of them now. The soft click of the bedroom door signaled Damien's entrance. Alina stood near the floor-length window, arms crossed, the night breeze teasing the curtains beside her. She hadn't changed out of her wrapper yet, still wrapped in the quiet storm of disbelief. Behind her, Damien's reflection moved across the glass as he stepped inside, drying his hands with a towel. "You've been quiet," he said, his voice warm and low. "I have questions," she replied, still staring out at the manicured gardens lit by soft pathlights. "I figured." She turned to face him, her eyes narrowing not in anger, but in confusion. "Why didn't you tell me you were this rich?" Damien didn't look surprised. He walked over to the couch and sat down, resting his elbows on his knees. "Because it didn't matter," he said. "Not that day." Alina joined him slowly, sinking into the cushion beside him, her wrapper rustling against the fabric. It matters to me now. This house, this life, it's not normal. You let my entire family think you were just some quiet guy who wandered into a wedding. You live in a literal palace, Damien. I never lied, he said calmly. I just didn't explain everything. There wasn't exactly time for a PowerPoint. Her voice trembled. But why would someone like you, clearly successful, clearly something, agree to marry a stranger on a whim? It doesn't make any sense. Damien's eyes softened. Because I've seen too much of the world, he said. I've seen people pretend to care about me. I've seen women fall in love with the money, the name, the status, but never with me. Alina swallowed, her throat dry. That day at the wedding, he continued, I saw you standing there, humiliated, hurt, holding yourself together in a way most people couldn't. You didn't fall apart. You didn't scream or run. You just stood. And I thought, if a woman like that could have the courage to show up with grace even when everything fell apart, then maybe she deserved someone to stand next to her, even for just one day. Alina blinked fast, her heart stuttering in her chest. So you chose me because I didn't know who you were? He nodded. Exactly. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. Outside, the sound of distant crickets played beneath the hum of nighttime quiet. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Then don't, Damien said gently. Just give this a chance to breathe. The next morning, sunlight spilled into the mansion's breakfast room, dappling the table with golden light. Alina sat in a soft satin robe, her hair pulled back, a steaming cup of tea cradled in her hands. Across from her, Damien sat in a crisp white shirt, scrolling through emails on his tablet. The quiet between them was peaceful, like the gentle pause after a storm. So, Naomi said suddenly, entering the room and dropping Alina's phone on the table, Jordan's calling again. Alina froze, the name like a cold splash to the face. Naomi raised a brow. Do you want to take it? Without a word, Alina stood and stepped out onto the balcony. Her hands shook slightly as she swiped to answer. Cease, Jordan's voice cracked. Please let me talk. She said nothing. I messed up, he continued. I got scared. I thought I wasn't enough. I didn't want to fail you. But I didn't stop loving you. I swear I didn't. Alina finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. You left me. On our wedding day. You didn't call, you didn't explain, you just vanished. And now, after I've started building something with someone else, you want to talk? I'm sorry, he choked. Just meet me once, please. There is no last time, Jordan, she said, her tone resolute. I begged God to bring you back, but now I see he gave me Damien instead. She ended the call. Inside, Damien had stepped back from the hallway window, unseen but not unaware. He had watched the stiffness in her shoulders, the way her hand trembled as she lowered the phone. But when she returned to the breakfast table, she smiled faintly. Sorry, she said, that was nothing important. Damien didn't press. He simply reached for the teapot, refilled her cup, and slid it toward her in silence. Thank you, she whispered. And though she didn't say it aloud, something inside her shifted. The man sitting across from her wasn't just a stranger anymore. He was becoming her peace. Naomi zipped up her travel bag with one last tug, her eyes drifting once again to the garden, where Damien and Alina stood side by side. The early afternoon sun filtered through the high palm trees, casting dappled shadows over the neatly trimmed hedges. The couple moved slowly, watering a row of orchids near the fence, talking quietly, laughing softly. Naomi couldn't hear what they were saying, but the way Damien leaned in just a little closer, and the way Alina tilted her head when she laughed, it told a story no words ever could. I'll be heading out now, Naomi called as she stepped into the living room. Damien sat in a high-backed chair reading a finance magazine, his blazer draped casually over one arm. Alina looked up from the kitchen where she had just set down a bowl of diced pineapples. Already? Alina asked, wiping her hands on a towel. I need to check on Mom, Naomi said, shouldering her bag. And besides, you two clearly need your space. Alina hurried over and pulled her sister into a tight hug. Thank you for coming with us, she whispered. I know it was rushed, but it meant everything to me. Naomi hugged her back, then pulled away just enough to look her sister in the eye. Just promise me one thing, Alina nodded. Anything. Don't lose yourself in this man's world, Naomi said quietly. I know you're strong. Just stay that way. Before Alina could reply, Damien stood and approached them with a polite nod. "The driver's waiting. He'll take you straight to the village." Naomi turned to him. "You've been nothing but kind. I'll admit I was suspicious at first." "You had every right to be," Damien said. Naomi studied him for a moment, then offered a small smile. "Just don't break her heart, or I'll be back." He chuckled, but his tone was serious. "I won't." The ride back to the village was smooth, but Naomi's mind spun with everything she'd seen. Marble floors, chandeliers, a kitchen larger than her entire apartment. As the sun dipped lower, the car turned onto the dusty road leading to the Munro compound. Out front, Vivian sat with a few neighbors and Aunt Bessie, shelling ground nuts and exchanging stories. When they spotted Naomi stepping out of the SUV, voices rose in excitement. "Naomi, you're back. How is Alina?" Aunt Bessie asked. "Did she cry for that Jordan boy?" another neighbor chimed. Naomi smirked and dropped her bag on the mat. "Cry? Alina, please, that girl is swimming in money." The entire yard went silent. "What do you mean?" Vivian asked, eyes narrowing. Naomi leaned in with a mischievous glint in her eye, savoring the moment like a master storyteller. Her new husband, Damien Cole. "Mama, the man is loaded. Mansion, staff, security gate that opens like in the movies. I'm telling you, their compound is bigger than the mayor's." Aunt Bessie gasped. "Are you serious? Designer gowns, breakfast with a view, and you should see the way he looks at her, like she's carved from sunlight." Laughter and shock erupted among the women, but Vivian just sat still, her eyes wide. But she didn't even know him. They weren't dating. "She does now," Naomi replied proudly. "And trust me, they're getting closer by the day." That evening, word spread like wildfire through the village. Alina Munro, the bride who had been left standing at the altar, was now the wife of a man who owned a mansion with marble floors and wore suits tailored in Italy. Back in Atlanta, the days following Naomi's departure were filled with an unexpected kind of joy. Alina had begun to shed the weight of the past, each hour spent with Damien, like a balm over wounds she didn't even realize were still open. In the mornings, they had breakfast on the sun-drenched terrace. In the evenings, they took long walks around the estate, talking about everything from childhood fears to favorite books. It started small, his hand brushing hers when they laughed, a soft touch on her back when guiding her through a doorway. Then, one night, as they sat curled up on the couch watching an old movie, Damien reached for her hand and didn't let go. "Are you comfortable?" he asked, his voice low. Alina nodded, unable to speak, her heart beat in her throat. In that silence, something shifted. She leaned into his shoulder, and he rested his cheek gently against her hair. Neither of them said a word. But in that moment, they both understood. Something real was beginning. 2 months slipped by like silk between fingers. What had begun as a spontaneous act of compassion had blossomed into something far deeper. Quiet, steady, and real. The mansion no longer felt like a stranger's home to Alina. It pulsed with life, laughter, and late-night conversations that lingered until the stars faded. Damien remained the same calm presence, never demanding, never rushing. He moved with a grace that made space for her, encouraging her to speak when she wanted and offering silence when she needed. He had become her safe place. Alina often found herself smiling at nothing, while folding laundry, while watering orchids, while waiting for the kettle to boil. It was the kind of peace she hadn't known in years, the kind that made her forget the sting of Jordan's betrayal, the pitying eyes from neighbors, the shame of almost being left behind. With Damien, she felt chosen. Their connection deepened, unhurried. Damien shared stories of his travels, his failed engagement, the loneliness that came from always being desired for the wrong reasons. Alina opened up too about the pressure to be the perfect daughter, the way Jordan's abandonment had shattered her confidence, how she had once equated love with endurance rather than joy. And through it all, they grew close, not through grand declarations, but through the small gestures. A warm cup of tea waiting after a long bath, a scarf folded just the way she liked, a book he found that reminded him of something she once said. One evening, as they lounged on the couch, the city lights twinkling in the distance through the glass walls, Damien reached over and tucked a loose braid behind Alina's ear. She turned to him, her eyes questioning but soft. "I've wanted to do that for a while," he murmured. She didn't speak. Instead, she leaned forward, her hand resting lightly against his chest, and kissed him. It was slow, tentative at first, then warmer, more certain. Damien pulled her closer with the reverence of a man who wasn't just holding a woman, but holding a story, a heart, a second chance. That night, they lay tangled in each other's arms, their bodies pressed close, their breaths aligned. There were no words, just quiet touches and soft laughter. Two souls discovering the rhythm of something beautiful. In the days that followed, Alina moved through the house like sunlight. Her steps were lighter, her eyes brighter. The staff noticed it. Damien's business partners, when visiting, noticed it. Even the orchids on the terrace seemed to bloom with more color. Then, one Saturday afternoon, as the house filled with the aroma of jollof rice and roasted plantains, the front gate buzzed. Alina peeked through the window and gasped. Her family had arrived. Vivian, Naomi, and two aunties stepped out of a rented SUV, holding bags of fruit and casseroles like it was a Sunday reunion. Alina opened the door, heart pounding, and was immediately swept into her mother's arms. "My child," Vivian said, cupping her face. "You look glowing." Alina laughed, cheeks warm. "I've missed you all." They gathered around the massive dining table, which Damien had helped set with fine china and embroidered napkins. The meal was loud, loving, full of shared jokes and teasing. Damien held his own, charming even the most skeptical aunt with stories about Nigerian weddings gone wrong. But Naomi, ever observant, caught the subtle change first. The way Alina's hand sometimes drifted to her lower belly. The slight curve that hadn't been there 2 months ago. "Are you?" Naomi asked quietly as they cleared the dishes. Alina nodded, eyes shining. 3 months. Naomi let out a quiet squeal and hugged her so tight Alina thought she might burst. "You're going to be a mom." Vivian's eyes welled with tears. "A grandchild?" Damien stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Alina's back. "We wanted to wait before telling anyone, but yes, we're expecting." The room erupted in cheers and claps, laughter echoing off the marble floors. The aunties prayed out loud, Vivian cried openly, and Naomi danced a small circle around the table, her joy bubbling over. That night, after everyone had gone and the house had grown quiet again, Alina and Damien stood on the balcony, watching the moon cast silver patterns on the garden below. Damien slipped his arm around her waist, pulling her close. "I meant what I said the day we got married," he murmured. "I'll give you everything I have. But this," he gently touched her stomach, "this is the greatest gift." Alina leaned her head on his shoulder, tears of joy stinging her eyes. "I'm ready, Damien, to build this life with you, to grow it together." And in the hush of that night, with love blossoming beneath the stars, Alina knew she had finally come home. Life lesson from the story. Sometimes, life doesn't follow the plan we've carefully laid out. It throws curveballs, heartbreaks, and moments that leave us questioning everything we thought we knew. But often, in the most unexpected moments, like being left at the altar or saying yes to a stranger, we discover something beautiful, the power of second chances. Alina's journey reminds us that true love doesn't always arrive in perfect packaging or predictable timing. It comes when we least expect it, through people who see our worth when we feel unworthy. Damien didn't just offer her a name or a roof, he gave her respect, space to heal, and the rare kind of love that isn't loud, but deeply present. And Alina, in her courage to embrace the unknown, found not just healing, but home. This story teaches us to never let one moment of rejection define our future. Sometimes, what seems like an ending is just life clearing the path for a better beginning. Trust your journey, even when it doesn't make sense. Stay open to love, to grace, and to people who walk into your life with kindness in their eyes. Where are you watching this story from? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this heartfelt journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this one. Your next favorite story might be just one click away.